PCN is brought to you in part by the following underwriters.
Welcome to PACTV Community News. We have a great show with stories and in-studio guests from the South Shore. Tonight we bring you to a powerful event in Pembroke which featured an ex-NBA player and his very moving story.
The Music Box in Plymouth takes us to a free concert series at the Spire, and we check out a new bakery in Duxbury.
PCN stops into Duxbury's Rural and Historical Society annual dinner to hear about the upcoming year, and Pet Adoption brings us back to Kingston Animal Shelter to meet a new friend.
Loretta LaRoche is back on set with another Get a Life installment, but we begin the show with a segment taped earlier today.
We wanted to do something a little different to start the show. PACTV has some talented staff, and we will be bringing them in occasionally so viewers can meet them and learn more about what they do here at PACTV. We thought we'd start off with our very own news director, Kim Mio, who's also one of our anchors on PCN. Welcome, Kim.
Thank you. It's exciting to be here.
It's weird you being on this side of the table.
It is.
Okay, let's start with what your background is and what brought you to the point where you are now at PACTV.
Yeah, okay. Short little history there. I went to college for communications and film, television as a focus. And then after college, I freelanced for probably about a year and a half. Then took a full-time job all within the industry. I worked on commercials, I worked on movies, I worked on industrials for companies and all kinds of different things and all over the place. And then
were you based out of Boston?
Yep,
okay.
out of the Boston area. And then I took a job with the company for a while, and then I decided to move to California. So I moved to California.
Hollywood?
Hollywood.
Ooh.
And I worked on a sitcom for a couple of years, and that was lots of fun.
What sitcom?
Naked Truth. It was called The Naked Truth. It had Taya Leone.
Yeah.
Only had 3 seasons.
Who's now Madam Secretary.
She is Madam Secretary now.
Yes.
And I worked on that for the last 2 years of that series, and then worked on a bunch of pilots and other things after that.
What did you do on the sitcom?
I was a stage production assistant.
Which means?
Which means I stay on the stage the whole time.
Yeah.
And I run scripts to people. I have to go get the actors in their dressing rooms when it's their time, and just run things back and forth to people.
You kept everything on schedule.
Kept everything on schedule. I just got waters if someone needed a water. I mean, you just do whatever is thrown at you, but it's really fun.
And you did it for 2 years.
I worked on that show for 2 years, and then I worked on other ones, different shows that came up, and then some of them would go off and some of them would not. So you kind of work on pilot season, they called it.
Yeah.
At the time. It's probably very different now than it was then. It was very seasonal. Everything was in a season.
Yes.
So that was lots of fun, but I always knew I was a New England girl,
Yeah.
and my family's here, and I really knew I was going to move back here someday. I just didn't want to be in that industry forever because I just wanted to get married and have babies, and so I moved back home, and that's when I really got into community television.
And how did you find community television?
Well, actually, I did it when I was going in my last year in high school. I actually went to my local station, and I volunteered there, and I learned a whole bunch of stuff, took classes and all that, and I made a documentary when I was there, and just learned a whole bunch of stuff. So it was always in my thought patterns. And when I moved back from California, I was just looking around for jobs. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was older now and ready to kind of get to more of a settled place. And I found a posting for a membership coordinator job in Billerica.
Okay.
I took that job, and then I moved to executive director of Bedford Station, which was a startup. Then I was there for a while, and then I moved to ORC TV in Marion, and was the executive director there, which was sort of a startup again. And then I lived in Plymouth, though, moved to the South Shore, and I lived here, and I just, always knew of PACTV, and it's a, very well-established and well-respected station among all the access stations.
Yeah.
So when a position opened up here to start this news show, I jumped at it.
Now, what have been some of the big challenges, because there was no news show before you came here? How did you go through the process of, how do I create a news show? What do I do?
Yeah, I walked in blind. Oh, definitely walked in blind, but I definitely have the skills to pull it off. And Nancy the executive director here at the time, she knew me from other state organizations that we were on the board for. So I've known her a long time, and she knew, I guess, of my organizational skills, and thought, hey, you might be a good fit for this. And so I just kind of walked in. We started just developing an idea. She let me take a few months to really get things line up, video people, and fleshed it all out. And the first, if you watch the first couple shows, they're simpler than it is now.
It's evolved.
It has evolved. It has evolved
in a wonderful way. Yes.
So it's just grown, and we're in our coming up on our fourth year.
Fourth year. How many episodes have you done?
Tonight, this week's show is 162. So
and
162
that's shows, and each show has 4 to 7 segments in them.
Each show has 6 stories and then a segment.
Wow.
So I don't know if I could do
Over
that kind of
1,000.
math. I think
Over
there's
1,000.
over 1,000 stories we've done in the last 4 years, covering the 4 towns that we serve, but
Right.
also the region and the segments that we do, like the local eats restaurant review and health and wellness and all that sort of stuff. So the segments have really taken off, and Get a Life with Loretta on now, and Leslie Cutler as well. So it's been really fun to add new things.
Yep, it's wonderful. And more to come.
And more to come.
Well, thank you so much. It's been great interviewing you today. We'll do it again.
Thank you.
Wow, that was awesome. It's so good to hear from Kim about her background and how she got to where she is. And you are not only an anchor, but you're also a reporter and a videographer. And what do you like best?
She just gives me a lot of freedom to just really capture the story. When I first came here, she sent me out to, I forget what the story was, but I knew I had to meet certain criteria. And I was a little nervous doing that first shoot. And from there on, she just gives me little pointers here and there, and it all it's a gradual thing, and she's just been there from start to finish. I just love working for her. It's the best news director I've had yet.
She's wonderful.
Yeah. He may have been the most gifted basketball player ever to come out of Durfee High School in Fall River. His talent led to recruitment from many of the top colleges and universities across the country, a feature in Sports Illustrated, and eventually a pro contract with the Boston Celtics. Yet all the talent in the world couldn't save him from drug addiction. His name is Chris Herren, and after realizing his dream of playing with the Boston Celtics, he saw his career come to a screeching halt thanks to his demons. Since August 1st, 2008, Herren has been clean and sober and goes on speaking engagements across the country. He teamed up with Pembroke's Titans Against Drugs last week for a powerful presentation at Pembroke High School.
So it's not the first time that Chris has been to Pembroke. It's the first time that Pembroke Titans Against Drugs has sponsored him and brought him here. We're bringing him here because of what his message is, his story, obviously. It's a big-time story. The ESPN's done documentaries on him. He travels the world, I think, discussing it. We had him at the high school earlier this afternoon to speak to all the Pembroke High School kids, and it was quite powerful, very real. You could hear a pin drop in there, and I'm even more excited to see what he brings tonight for the whole public.
I do about 250 speaking engagements a year. Roughly 175 to 200 high schools. I work with Alabama football, Florida State football, the Los Angeles Kings. I'm with all those teams multiple times a year. I do the NFL rookies, NBA rookies. So a wide range of audiences, but my favorite is high school. Because I think kids want to do the right thing. And I think they know they're doing the wrong thing. And I think they're torn. I think they have one foot in, one foot out. And I believe most want to do the right thing. I don't think we go through great lengths as children, as teenagers, to cover up our Friday night. We go to great lengths to cover up our Saturday nights. We wouldn't cover it up if it wasn't a mistake.
Chris's story, he told it to the high schoolers today, was not just about, it's not just about drinking or using the substances, always something behind that, and it's whether it's lack of confidence or feeling like you don't fit in, and using substances, teen drinking, those things to kind of escape from that and to only have fun that way. And he talks about how that was him.
You know, I think at the end of the day, when people listen to my story, I'm really every parent's worst nightmare. You know, when I was playing shortstop in Little League or serving Mass as an altar boy, my mom, that wasn't her expectations. You know, you hear that cliche all the time, it can happen to anybody. I don't really believe everybody believes that. And that's the reason why nobody prepares for it. But if I can share my story and impact somebody, if I could help someone else who's struggling, see that there's a way out, that's what it's all about. You know, in my opinion, I think rock bottom, the word itself, has killed a lot of people. I don't even use it. I'm not a fan of it. I think parents wait till it's too late. I know for me and my journey, I woke up every day taking a chance at dying. That's a pretty bad day. I mean, when you take a drug that can kill you, things aren't going too well. And I did that for 8 years. So my bottom was 8 years long, in a sense. I don't think you have to wait for the inevitable overdose, the inevitable car crash, the inevitable handcuffs. I don't think you have to wait for that.
He does what he does, and we do what we do for the same exact reason, to affect one person. That's all we're asking for. We know that no one's going to change the world, and people are still going to make these mistakes, and drugs are never going to go away. But just people to really think about some of the choices that Chris made, what they led to, why some of those choices didn't seem like big deals at the time, but what they turned into, and just how susceptible all of us, and it's not just kids, it's adults too, can be to some of these things.
For those of you who have been to the Spire Center for the Performing Arts, you're familiar with the clear perfection of its wonderful acoustics. But for those of you who haven't experienced it, the Music Box is sponsoring a series of special concerts with local, regional, and national music acts that are completely free. This free concert series is aimed at bringing new audiences and, yes, big-name artists to Plymouth to shine a light on its growing arts, culture, and impressive performance center. PCN stopped into the first free concert of many last Friday night.
Three concert series was brought to me by Jake Hill, who's a very good friend of mine and local performer here in Plymouth area. And effectively, we want more people to know about the Spire. Basically, he offered me the opportunity to go ahead and to sponsor some shows. These bands are roots derivative, folk derivative, and I'm very happy to promote this and very happy to be a part of it.
Yeah, well, I think, Mick at the Music Box is sponsoring tonight's show, and I think it's awesome. I mean, he's clearly got this community of people that just really love hanging out and talking shop with him, and I think it's great. I think that the whole idea of this type of environment is really awesome, and I'm excited to be a part of it.
We're excited to play in the venue, and the fact that it's a free show and all ages is just like, you don't really get to play many of those, especially during the winter. It's just, it's something that, severely lacking during the winter especially. So the opportunity for families to come and see live music at such a nice space is, we're just happy to be a part of it.
With the free concert series, where I'd like to see it wind up is seeing local artists step up to the plate and produce world-class music. That we have actually started to see an influx of new talent, and we've actually seen artists reach out, and they want to perform here. And that's the most important thing to me, is that we have an identity in Plymouth that says that we care about creating a scene that's our scene, whether it's cuisine, whether it's theater or art. It's that somehow, some way, we have an identity. And the most quickest and most expedient way of producing a scene is through music.
So I hope you stay.
And that's what's going to push the agenda forward, especially with a venue that has such an amazing sound. You want to hear new people producing new music that sets the agenda for the next century.
What does writing a column for a newspaper have in common with running a breakfast and lunch restaurant? If you said nothing, you'd be right. Laura Raposa and Steve Sire were each columnists for the state's two biggest newspapers, the Boston Herald and the Boston Globe, when they decided to turn their worlds upside down and try their hands at managing and running an eatery in Duxbury. I visited these two brave people, and here's their story. You may have noticed here in Duxbury Center that there's a new bakery in town. What you may not have noticed is that the Foodsmith Bakery is owned and run by two celebrities. Their star status is easy to overlook since you likely never saw their faces on TV. But if you read the Boston Globe or the Boston Herald at any point over the last 20 years, there's a good chance you read one of their columns. Trading in their pens, pads, keyboards, and columns for bread knives and baked goods, this couple is taking on the business endeavor of their lives: restaurant ownership. Running a bakery was certainly a change of pace for these two former newspaper columnists, but if you ask them, this labor of love was a welcome change.
I have absolutely no background in business whatsoever. I was a gossip columnist at the Boston Herald for many years, 21 years as a matter of fact, but I was there for 30. But while I wrote the inside track, I also had this secret life where I cooked and baked and took classes and catered and did all these things because it made me happy. I love feeding people. That's what I love. And the other thing was my job, but what really I was passionate about was cooking and baking.
After an extensive search for a storefront, they found themselves here in Duxbury, and they managed to build up plenty of interest before the store even opened.
We opened here in late August, and we spent a good part of the year building out our space before we could actually open. And the response almost from the get-go has been terrific. People have been very generous to us. We're next to a very popular ice cream shop, so as we were painting and doing other things through the summer, people would literally just walk into the store as it was being built and ask us things about it. So there was a lot of curiosity, and once we opened, a lot of business that was just very enthusiastic about us being in their area.
Just as Steve Sire found the vast difference between writing a business column and running a business, so has Laura Raposa with regards to managing the restaurant.
Baking and having this store is much harder than being a gossip columnist at the Boston Herald. And frankly, I really enjoy this. I feel like I'm part of a community. The people who come in are regulars. I know their names, I know their children, I know their grandchildren, I know what the kids were for Halloween. I knew all that and what they wanted for Christmas. And I just love being part of this town. And what's great about this town is that they support local business.
We were millions of miles away from this as a business and as a professional background. This was something that she wanted to do very specifically, and I was very engaged by trying to make the business work. And that's kind of how we committed to doing this, and it's been an education to say the least.
Outside the Foodsmith on Standish Street in Duxbury, I'm Brian Sullivan for PCN.
The Duxbury Rural and Historical Society met up for its annual meeting and dinner last week. Agenda items included celebrating accomplishments of 2015, setting their sights on new objectives for 2016, and recognizing the outstanding work of all of their volunteers.
Well, the significance of the meeting is a coming together every year of all members who choose to engage and be involved to come together and vote the business of the society. We have an agenda of trustees who have to be elected every year. We have an obligation as a nonprofit with a specific mission to engage the membership and share and report back to them on how we're doing.
2015 was a fantastic year. We had a marked increase in membership. Our annual fund is doing fantastic. We've seen all kinds of new faces at our programs and our events. And we're just very, very pleased at the relevancy and the enthusiasm that our community is showing the DRHS.
I think without a doubt, the most exciting thing for us on the board is to see the level of participation and engagement in the society. We have an army of volunteers who support everything we do. generous benefactors that have always supported the society.
We have an incredible number of volunteers that make programs possible at DRHS. They do everything from transcribing diaries to working programs and events as tour guides and preparing food and any number of activities. And each year at the annual meeting, we have the opportunity to honor them and their activities and their contributions. So we have a number of awards that we give at the annual meeting. The first one is in preservation, then we have one in education, one in activities, one in gardens and lands, and one for volunteer of the year.
I do think the most important thing that we can mention that dovetails our mission is preservation in the town of Duxbury. We're also the steward of 160 acres of land and 4 historic homes. And these homes exist in neighborhoods and districts where historic preservation is vital to maintaining the character and the rural character of Duxbury. There's a lot of transition taking place in town, and I think it's important, and we consider it our role to support that preservation, and we'll continue to do so going forward.
Our pet adoption highlight introduces us to Ella, who's looking for a forever home here at the Kingston Animal Shelter.
Meet Ella. She's a white and gray domestic medium-haired cat, approximately 2 years old. She has a soft, cottony coat, similar to a rag doll, and she's looking for her forever home. Ella is a little shy at first, and it takes her a few minutes to warm up to company. But then she really comes out of her shell. Ella is sweet, lovable, and playful. She really enjoys having her chin and head rubbed. She has noticeably beautiful eyes, and I found myself gazing into them for quite a while. She has that effect. Ella is healthy, spayed, and up to date on all her shots. For more information, contact the Kingston Animal Shelter directly by email at kaco1@comcast.net or go online to petfinder.com and search for the Kingston Animal Shelter with zip code 02364.
We are now joined by Loretta LaRoche for her segment, Get a Life. Thank you for being here, Loretta.
Thank you. I've been trying to get a life for years.
Yes.
I'm glad that I can do it here.
Her stress management and humor is brought out in a lot of different ways. And today, our post-Valentine's Day segment, we're going to talk about the one. Getting the one, falling in love with the one.
Yes, who is that?
Who is that?
I thought I had the one the first time, and because a lot of people did this in my day. You were waiting for the prince, so you kept looking for the prince, and then you married the prince, and he turned into a proverbial frog. But that doesn't mean one person. It takes 2 to tango, right?
That's right.
So I'll take accountability too. But finding the one, what is that all about? Being with somebody there's a much wider concept to being with somebody. We initially fall in lust with somebody. It's very sexy and hot, and you think, oh my God, this is the one. Whoa. And they've sort of discovered that that's the human nature because it's analogous to what they've studied about prairie voles.
Prairie voles.
They're little kind of rodent-like animals who bond for life. Once they breed, the guy never leaves.
Oh, so they're
monogamous. Even if his mate dies, he doesn't find another one.
Oh.
And that was how we want it to be, isn't it? We want our lives to be forever. We're going to be with this person forever. But it's not necessarily all about sex. It's not about somebody being handsome or finding things that you love and trying to make you happy on a daily basis, because happiness is part of it, but it's values that really make people stick together, isn't it? And do we ever talk about that? How many of us have sat down and say, okay, what do you value? What kinds of things do you see us doing together into the future? Do you like to help me? Are you going to help me clean the house? Are you going to help me parent the children? Are you going to be kind to my family? Are you going to be empathic? Are you altruistic? What kinds of things are we going to do to promote generativity versus stagnation?
Okay.
Because that's where a lot of people end up. They end up bored with one another, not fighting about stupid things.
But don't you find that people, when they're young, they'll meet someone, and had they met that same person 20 years later, it would be a totally different relationship. It would be a completely different dynamic. So we evolve as our lives evolve and as experiences evolve.
Of course.
So the one that we started out with, how do you turn that into the one you can stay with?
That's the generativity versus the stagnation. That's an Ericksonian model, which means that you have periodic sort of discussions about how you're going to stimulate one another, how you're going to be with each other, how are you going to keep this continuum going on values. So I'm going to read you a couple of ideas from the Gottman Institute, which is in California, which created the Love Lab, where they studied people who stay together 50, 60 years. We now have a whole different paradigm shift in the culture of marriage. Only 50% of people are actually getting married for the most part, and later in life, thank God, because now they're more mature.
Right.
So this is what Gottman found out. He said, how well do you know your partner's inner psychological world? In other words, do you ever sit down and say, ask them questions about what they know about you? Like, who's my best friend? What colors do I like? How do I express my feelings? What kinds of things do I feel spiritual about?
Right.
You know, do we ever sit down and ask real questions about the inner landscape, not just the outer landscape?
Okay.
Share fondness and admiration, which is the antidote for contempt.
Right.
A lot of times when we have discussions, we say, well, if you were more like Harry, I'd like you better. And, you know, it's too bad you do this, this, and this, and that. You're really a jackass.
So dwell on the commonalities versus dwelling on the things that you don't have
focus
in common.
on admiration, affection, and respect. You see, that's one of the biggest things. We need to respect one another.
Right.
And if we're going to have a discussion about concepts that we don't find analogous to one another, we need to do it with kindness and empathy.
Right.
I'm not saying I did all the time, but I'm learning more and more to do that. Turn inwards, share your needs. You know, what kinds of things do you really have internally that you want to share with that person? Manage conflicts. Try to resolve the conflict instead of continuing it for years. Women are amazing. We are like the Smithsonian Institute. If somebody does something 20 years ago, we can bring it up in an argument today. Like, you know, if you had
good memories.
We do. We have and men just, I call it tung fu, martial art, a martial art technique. We can bring them to their knees, can't we? How about making your life dreams come true? What's your bucket list? What can you create together or separately? There's a lot of times people think they have to be glued to this soulmate. But what brings interest to the relationship is bringing different things together and having a discussion about it.
Sure.
I don't want you around my neck daily like a necklace.
Exactly.
I want to know what it is.
It'd be fun to be
What
around the neck
what are
daily.
you doing today to make me continually to be interested in you, right?
Right. So what's our last point? We have time to cover one more point.
Trust.
Oh, that's a biggie.
I think you have to feel that you can trust your partner, that he's not lying to you or she's not lying to you, that she's not doing things behind your back, that you're not going to find out something down the road that's going to make you feel contempt.
Sure. So the bottom line is we have to communicate. We have to be realistic in our expectations of a relationship.
Right.
And we have to trust.
And be loving and kind
At all
to one
times.
another.
I agree.
As much as possible.
Thank you, Loretta.
You're welcome.
We will have you back again for more advice on Get a Life. Thanks for watching this week's show. We hope you enjoyed these local stories. Our website has replay times and links that you can get extra information by following us on Facebook and on Twitter. We will see you next week for more stories from Duxbury, Kingston, Pembroke, and Plymouth. Have a great week.